Dwyer mentioned this book that he read. It's called 13 Hours, and it's from the perspective of a guy, a 12-year Marine who came back and was in Benghazi as a private contractor. Am I getting that right, Mark? Mark Geist is on the phone with us, by the way. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Just to give you a heads up, this is going to be the worst interview you've done ever, okay? Just we'll lay that out there right now.
But it will be very sincere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to kind of weigh it, right?
So did I have that accurate? 12 years in the Marines?
Sir.
Okay,
I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps. I got out. I was in law enforcement for a while and kind of did my own thing for my own business, and then I joined contracting when the war started.
Well, first off, thanks for your service. We think it's an incredible thing to serve your country in the military around here. We don't take that lightly. So on top of your service, then you go back as a private contractor, security contractor, and this was not your first contracting job. This was just one of your contracts, right?
Yes, sir. Ended up being my last one, it looks like. But.
Yeah.
So tell us from your perspective what happened that day and that night in Benghazi.
You know, Benghazi, in some aspects it's a Mediterranean town, and it had some beautiful spots to it. But then it was a very lawless city after the fall of Gaddafi.
Yeah.
And it was that night I was out in town working with a case officer when got the call that the consulate was under attack. And so we had to make our way back to the annex where we were at. And when we got there, the other guys had already left to go over and that's the guys that had to defy the stand-down order. They went over and helped to try to help find the ambassador and rescue the Department of State security officers that were basically being held hostage. I mean, they were trapped in their rooms. They couldn't do anything.
Now, you guys had trained for just this type of situation, correct?
Well, we train for any type of eventuality. I mean, we know that we're going to serve in some of the most dangerous parts of the world, and you always have to be ready for any type of action. And this is just one of the many scenarios that we would train for, and both physically and mentally always prepare ourselves for this kind of thing.
So did you know right away that this was serious, or is this just typical, run-of-the-mill, here we go type of a day?
That night about 9:30 when I got the call, once I got back to the annex, I knew, because I didn't have any information until I got back, that it was not a run-of-the-mill day. I mean, I could see the glow of the fires from the consulate from where I was at, and because I was getting ready, the defensive positions and everything ready at the annex, so when the guys come back, knowing good and well that they're going to probably come after us next.
Ooh.
And you guys, just so people get an idea, if you close your eyes and picture a TV screen, the main compound where Ambassador Chris Stevens and his staff and the security forces at the main compound are in the upper left corner of your screen. Your compound, the annex, with the security detail, is on the lower right of the screen. How much distance is between those two compounds?
As the crow flies, about 3/4 of a mile. Drive-wise, probably closer to a mile.
Okay. And so you see this is the real deal. This is when everything you've been taught and trained for is going to be tested right now. And you said that they're going to come for you next.
Yes, sir.
So what do you do? Because you guys were told to what? Stand down?
Yes, sir. And initially I think the chief of base, who in the book we call Bob, was wanting to coordinate with they were called the February 17th Martyrs Brigade, to let them know that we were going to be heading over there. But that's something that should only take about 5 minutes, maybe 10 at max. And He was kind of a risk-averse individual in his operations towards dangerous stuff. I mean, as a case officer for the agency, I think he probably had a wonderful career, a stellar career, but he just wasn't built, I don't think, for this type of situation.
So he was trying. His job was you guys had, in addition to your own security force and the security that was at the compound initially, there was a faction of rebels, as it were, that you guys were friendly with, who were supposed to help out if there was a situation. This brigade you're talking about, they were to be counted on for added security, correct?
Well, yes, sir. And actually, they were hired by the Department of State to have 5 people man what we call a quick reaction force that lived on the diplomatic compound, the State Department compound where the ambassador was. They lived there to be that quick reaction right there on the site type of security.
Mark Geist is on the phone with us. He survived Benghazi. He was there. His book is called 13 Hours, The Inside Account of What Really Happened in Benghazi. And, back here, we get a different story from what really happened. I don't know that we'll ever know the truth or get, a real account of it. So you told us that you should have confirmation or approval to go ahead and do what you needed to do within 5 minutes, and it wasn't coming. Do you guys start questioning why? This is stupid. Why are we not allowed to go and do our job?
Well, and we kind of got a feeling of why, because we'd worked with Bob in similar situations where an example we put that's in the book 13 Hours is a couple of our guys, Tyrone Woods, one of them was stopped at a checkpoint when they were picking up supplies at the airport by one of the other militias, and they were held at gunpoint. And really what we would like to do in a situation like that is send a team out to be in the area in case something did escalate. Then we can respond from right there and help, and don't have to be, a long distance away. Mm-hmm. Well, Bob never would let anybody leave the compound. He was always against leaving the compound to go do that because either he didn't have faith in us, and I would really like to know. That's something I would like to question Bob on, but I've never had the opportunity.
And you guys are working on different. You guys are basically working for different bosses. Bob's working for the agency, and you guys are,
private contractors.
You're private contractors. You're hotheads. You're badasses. Your respect for authority might not hold true to your attention to duty. You guys had a conflict. Part of your team ends up going, even though there's a stand-down order, because you're not going to take it anymore. According to the book, the guys fear that they had lost the initiative, which means, the compound was under attack, but you guys still had an opportunity, if released quickly, to go in and secure it. Once they create a perimeter, you guys have a lot harder task, correct?
Yes, sir. And the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back was over the radio with the State Department guys that were trapped in their rooms. They said that, and if you don't get here now, we're all going to die.
And you can hear them saying that over the radio.
Yeah, you can hear the desperation and the fear in their voices. And we knew that we had to go. And unfortunately, the question's been asked: Do we think we could have made a difference in the life of Sean Smith and Ambassador Stevens? And through the other two guys, throughout the team, there's different feelings on it. To some that vary to a little bit, but we all believe that we would have made a difference. Some of them were very adamant that yes, we would have saved his life. me, myself, at a bare minimum, I think that we would have created a diversion which would have been very easily stopped them from lighting the fires that are what did kill the ambassador. I think we could have saved his life.
So is it fair to say then, you think you could have, but at least you should have been, at the very least, you should have been given the opportunity?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
That's what they hire us to do, is to save lives.
And
then not let us do it.
And do you consider that a failure in your mission? I don't want you to think. I think any mission you walk away from is okay. But in your head, in your heart, knowing that not only did the ambassador and his assistant die, but they died of smoke inhalation, most likely, in fires set by diesel fuel and furniture. Do you feel like that was a failure?
Well, it wasn't a failure on our part, because our responsibility, just to clarify, was not to protect the ambassador. We were there to protect case officers for the U.S. government that were doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
We had because there was no other security in the area, we had told on a personal level, we told the State Department guys, hey, if you need us, we're going to be there for you. And in that sense, it's not that it's a failure, but I think we could have done better. I mean,
well, you gave him your word, right? And
right.
You're a Marine. If you need us, we'll be there for you.
Yes.
We're talking with Mark Geist. The book is called 13 Hours, and it's the story of Benghazi from his point of view. He's a private security contractor who was there, and we're not even into the meat of what happened. I mean, at the mission compound, I guess at the main compound, that was that fell. But your security team comes back with the people that they managed to save. And then you have to gear up for a second fight at the annex. And is it true that by and large most people didn't realize that the annex was there or what it was there for?
I think a bunch of white faces in the Middle East, you stand out to some degree. I don't believe that anybody really knew who we were exactly and what we did there, but because I had heard rumor that they thought we were, either French or European of some sort,
mm-hmm.
doing business in Benghazi, and that's not uncommon. And we were ready for the fight, because once the guys got back and brought the State Department security personnel that they rescued back, you could hear in the distance the tires screeching along, kind of on the outskirts of our perimeter. We were in an urban neighborhood, though we call it in the book Zombie Land. To the east and northeast was what we call it Zombie Land. It's like a miniature stockyards for sheep, where and we knew that they would probably be coming in from that direction because you could hear a movement out there at that time.
Mark, are you? You guys were told to hold your position, stand down 3 times, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you angry about that? About how this all went down?
Yeah, I do get angry over that. More in the aspect of, you hire people for their expertise to do a job, and then you don't let them do what you hire them to do. You don't let them do. I mean, it's like, I guess it's like having a sheepdog, and you have a herd of sheep, but you're going to leave him in the house and not let him protect the sheep.
Yeah.
It's his job to protect sheep. Let him do what he does best.
And what about the way the story was told to us back here in the States? And it was a video, it was spontaneous. That we know now that's not at all how it was. Do you think they knew that at the time?
I almost guarantee they did. I was laying in a hospital in Germany on the 13th, night of the 12th and the 13th. On the 13th, a representative from the Department of State had come by to check on, the idea was they were checking on how well I was doing and things like that. But, we discussed those very issues. I mean, I don't know, and I doubt we'd ever know if they ever went anywhere, but, a phone call to us in Germany, and they would have known what we saw. You would have had real-time intelligence from the ground. I mean, I was in town that night, didn't see anything that would lead you to believe that there was going to be any type of demonstration, because typically you'll see the gathering of young people on the corners, kind of away from the area where they may be getting ready to protest, and then they all come together and kind of march and chant, and there was none of that, And
so, wait a second. Let me back you up. When you said that the guy from the State Department was sent to your hospital, you said under the guise of checking on me, was he really there to make sure you got your story straight? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't mean to imply that. He come by and he was with his wife, and his title is the Consul General.
Oh, okay.
He's like deputy ambassador, so to speak, of a certain area.
I see.
I think he legitimately came by to see us.
Okay, but he could have
we had discussions about things.
Okay, so he could have communicated back to the States, back to his commanding officers, your eyewitness account.
Correct.
Okay,
they could have had your eyewitness account as it was happening, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. Within probably a couple hours, within probably from the time that it actually ended to then was probably less than probably 10 hours.
Now we got to take a break. We're talking with Mark Geist, and now he was in a hospital in Germany, and
this was after Benghazi, by the way.
After Benghazi, and he spent 2 years almost rehabbing his injuries, and we'll find out how he got those injuries. But we got to take a break, Mark. If it's okay with you, can you hang out for a few more minutes?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Sure appreciate
that. All right, we'll be back.
Dwyer and Michaels in the morning. And the best classic rock all day. 97X.
Mark Geist is on the phone with us. He was in Benghazi. His book is called 13 Hours. It's subtitled The Inside Account of What Really Happened in Benghazi. And before we went to break, Mark was actually injured during that I don't even
13
know
hours.
During the 13 hours, yeah. Why don't you tell us about that? How did you get injured, and how badly?
Pretty bad. I was up on the roof. I'd moved from one fighting position to the next, and I was up with Tyrone Woods, and it was getting on about 5:30 in the morning. You could see in the far distance the light coming up, from the sun getting ready to come up, and we knew that if they were going to attack again, it was going to come soon, because just typical way they operate is going to attack kind of at daylight. And about that time, Glenn Doherty come up on the roof, and he was friends with Tyrone, and he wanted to come up and see his buddy, and two, just to help man the positions in case something did happen.
And you guys are at the annex for now. This is, you've already basically... you've already saved the people from the main compound that you could save. You caravanned quickly back to the compound. Already put down one attack on the compound, and once you sent them on their way, they basically are regrouping. They're regrouping, and you're basically waiting for the crap to hit the fan the second time.
Yeah, and actually, we had put down two major attacks on our compound at the annex. Then, there was a lull in the fighting, and like I said, then we knew they were getting ready to come. Glenn Doherty, he had come down with a couple of the other guys from Tripoli to reinforce and help extract the non-shooting personnel and get them out, mainly because of the airplane that they were able to acquire was a civilian plane.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so before this third and final attack, you guys were in already. The mission now was getting these people and yourselves the hell out of there and get to the airport and fly out.
Yes, sir.
That's what the guys from Tripoli came in to help you do. Glenn Doherty, the guy you're talking about, he was part of that team. Their job was to come in and remove, like you said, the non-shooters in a caravan, a protected caravan, to get to the airport so that you guys could save the rest of these people and then eventually yourselves. You were left holding down the fort with some of your other contract workers.
Yes, and we never got to the point of where we got any of the non-shooters out because right when we were getting ready to, as I said, Glenn come up. We had said Tyrone had introduced me to Glenn, and then Glenn had turned to walk away to check to see if they were getting ready to leave. And it was at that time that they launched their third counterattack to us. They shot an RPG at our back wall and launched them. The first mortar hit the top of our back wall, which was about probably maybe 30 feet in front of me, but I was on an elevated position above that. One of the State Department guys that had came up on the roof also to help with security was standing at the opposite corner of me and Tyrone Woods, and he got injured by that first mortar blast. Some shrapnel and debris hit him in the face. And it was almost immediately that they opened fire with small arms fire. And Tyrone Woods and I opened fire with, Tyrone had a machine gun and I had a rifle. And we started to put, I probably emptied a magazine down at the attackers when the second mortar hit the top of the roof, right in between me and Dave Ubin, who is the State Department guy, which between us was probably maybe 20 feet from me and probably 20 feet from him.
On the top of this building that you guys are using to keep to secure the compound.
To repel the attack. Yeah.
So this mortar blast, the second mortar blast, now hits the roof of the building that you're on. You said that Dave, the security guy, he's already down. So when the mortar hits, it wasn't going to do any more damage to him as far as security. What did it do to you? Do you know?
Well, it knocked me back, and I was just, as I was coming back up and bringing my weapon back up to start firing, I could see out of the corner of my left eye that Tyrone Woods was down, and he was in a fetal position to my left. I was actually standing between him and the blast, and I'm not sure, and I probably will never know exactly why the good Lord upstairs chose him over me. That's I leave that in his hands. But as I brought my left arm up to grab my weapon, it was almost severed from about 4 inches above the wrist. It was hanging kind of at a 90-degree angle from the direction it hit from how it was supposed to be. And I kept trying to get my arm up because I knew that Tyrone was down. I had to get my weapon up into the fight to keep shooting down where they were attacking from, and it wasn't probably 30 seconds, if that. It seemed like forever, but when a second mortar hit, and that second mortar hit just short of where the first one did, and to the south of it, and I looked over the corner of over my right shoulder, and I see Glenn Doherty go face down, and he's taken out of the fight. And then almost immediately a third mortar came in and hit and showered me, and both those mortars showered me with shrapnel. I got hit in the neck. A piece lodged about 1 millimeter from my carotid artery. I had 3 or 4 holes in my chest. I still have some metal that's in my chest that they chose not to take out because it wasn't going to endanger anything, and it'd be worse to go in after it. And
sure.
I had shrapnel in my stomach.
So is there just
area,
and
up and down both legs?
So is there just blood everywhere on you?
I'm not even paying, at first, I wasn't even paying attention to any of that. After the third mortar, I thought, I better get to some cover finally. I wasn't receiving as, that much small arms fire at that point. I think their attack kind of diverged, and as I sat down, as I dove to the side against the on the roof, and to describe the roof, there was about a 3-foot wall that extended above the top of the roof that we had been using as cover, and all I felt was wetness all around me, which my initial thought was that it was blood. And then I realized that it was cold, so I realized that it was water, because they usually have big water tanks sitting on, 250-gallon water tanks sitting on top of the roof.
Yeah.
For each building. That's how they have their water supply. It's pumped up into that, and then, it's gravity flow for water pressure from that point. But that thing had been punctured by the shrapnel as well, and there was water everywhere, which... thank goodness that's what it was and not blood.
This is Mark Geist on the phone with us. He is describing his eyewitness account in Benghazi. His book is called 13 Hours, The Inside Account of What Really Happened in Benghazi. And I don't want to give away the end of the book, but you survive.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to get too much into the politics of it. Obviously, you could choose which side you want to believe, the side that we're being told from here or Mark's version from actually there. Why do you think they continued to deny the facts of how it went down?
The only thing I can think of is for political expediency. It seems like that's been, and I hate to get into the politics, and I leave it up to the listeners and the readers of the book, but you look at what the track record sense of not doing nothing, as Leon Panetta said in his interview with Bill O'Reilly, he believes that the president has guts. He believes that he's a very intelligent man, but he worries that he won't take action on issues that come up. And not that he had, he is the president, so ultimately he is responsible for everything that happens in the name of this country. But not like on that night, not that he was the one that was given the orders or not given orders, but I think it's a systemic problem throughout. If your leader doesn't lead, if he has indecisiveness, then it's going to be systemic through the lower ranks, the rest of the administration, and I believe that has to be the case. For me, that's the only case that the only conclusion I can come up to based on my experience and what I've seen happen both in Benghazi and after Benghazi, as well as with the initial issues that arose with Syria and Al-Assad, the president of Syria, as well as ISIS and their growth, and the current situation in Iraq.
Yeah. So the information was there, but it was ignored or chose to ignore it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was expediency. I mean, sometimes it's maybe it's that fight or flight syndrome we always hear. I mean, some people respond to high adrenaline, high stress situations by fighting, and others freeze and have inaction.
Yeah. Well, thank God you survived. And I think, like you said earlier, there will always be that question of why in the back of your head. I don't expect ever people to come forward and say, okay, here's why. Here's why you were told to stand down. Here's why we were told it was a video. Here's what, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Can I ask who's responsible for your injuries, for helping you with your recovery? Since you're not you're a former Marine, but you weren't currently serving in the American military when these injuries took place.
By law, it was, and it's a law that was passed in 1941, but it's under the Longshoremen's Act. Defense-Based Act was the law that was passed that military or U.S. contractors for the U.S. government have to carry insurance, and we had to carry our own insurance. And so the majority of if any injuries occur overseas or death, then it's up to the insurance company to provide those services. Now, my case was a little bit different, and I think possibly part of that was because of the nature and publicity surrounding the event. They actually gave me what they call Department of Defense designee status, which allowed me to get my medical treatment done through the military. And the military has been, I had my surgery done in Lundsville, Germany at the military hospital there. I had probably over 10 surgeries done in Walter Reed. And then I've had surgeries done here in Colorado at the Air Force Academy. And, the surgeons, the medical staff, they've been wonderful. They've been great. But I have ran into problems when it comes to the private side of things, because the private side of things like to have their hand in it, trying to dictate, because they ultimately have to approve any, because like any insurance, they have to approve whatever services that are going to be provided.
Yeah.
And they don't like dealing with the military because the military doesn't pay attention to them.
Well, Mark, you have 20 surgeries. Some of them got to be for fun, I mean, what, did you get like a chin lift or you do an eyelid lift or something? For God's sake, they can't all be for real.
Well, actually, when they, in Germany, and because they had to cut open my stomach and make sure I didn't have any shrapnel or wounds on the inside, they actually found a hernia that I didn't know I had, and they did repair that for me, so I got a shout out to them. Thanks for taking care of that.
I recommend getting Mark's book. I wish we could talk to you for a day. I can't imagine what you live through each and every day with PTSD or whatever. Just knowing how close you came to death and watching some of your friends die in front of you must have been horrible. The book is called 13 Hours, and I heartily recommend reading that book. I also know that you and your wife put together the Shadow Warriors Project, which I think is something else people should look into. It's just a project that you and your wife started to help guys like you and the families who also sacrifice try to live more normal lives. We can't thank you enough for your service, man. From the Marines to Benghazi and everywhere in between, guys like you doing quiet, silent work. But boy, what a story! And thanks so much for telling it to us.
Hey, thank you. And if the listeners and the readers can jump out there, it's called ShadowWarriorsProject.org. You can read about us. We're brand new, but we're developing more information. Ask questions, and if you feel compelled that you want to help out, let us know what you can do. There's a donate button if you want to donate something monetarily, but we're looking for anything. And we're basically there's no really long-term care or support network out there for contractors, and that's what we want to provide. Kind of like the Wounded Warriors does for the military. We felt that there was something missing for the contractors, and there's a lot more contractors, private military contractors out there than what we realize.
Yeah. All right.
Serving our country.
All right. We'll put a link up to that on our website to help you get the word out. Thanks again for chatting with us, Mark, and thanks for your service.
Hey, thank you, guys, and it was wonderful. If you ever need me back, give me a shout.
All right, dude. Have a good day. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
That's Mark Geist. The book is called 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi.